Many unsung heroes go unnoticed, and their roles end up being pivotal to what makes pro wrestling so great. So tonight's TNT is hosted in honor of them. Thanks for tuning in to another special episode of Tyler Vance Rants. I am your host, Tyler Vance himself, and you're not. It's May 3rd, 1985. Last week's Lost TNT yielded disappointing results when formerly wonderful Paul Orndorff fired Bobby the Brain Heenan as his manager. This week's TNT is once more hosted by both Vince McMahon and Lord Awful Alfred Hayes, and the first trio of unsung heroes to be interviewed are Steve Lombardi, Mario Mancini, and Paul Roma. Oh, did you think that you were going to get an inside scoop into people like those that build the ring announcers, or even the camera crew? No way, Jose. McMahon's idea of an unsung hero is someone that loses night in and night out, and only sticks around from a variety of reasons ranging from admirable to outright idiotic. For example, I bet you couldn't tell that Mario Mancini here is only 18 years old. I would have guessed that he was pushing 40, but since the not-so-Super Mario is so young, he has found breaking into the World Wrestling Federation to be incredibly difficult, especially when often paired up against such experienced and skilled competitors. Roma goes on to say how hard it can be to come back from losing. That sounds like a you problem, pal. Before Lombardi finishes off by saying,
"You just got to keep coming back. If you love the sport, if you love it with all your heart, you're just going to keep coming back."
Steve Lombardi, that's an incredibly admirable thing to say, and I respect your stance. Mario Mancini, you're earning your place and will either make it or flake it. Paul Roma, you just suck. Vince McMahon presses Paul Roma further, asking whether or not the man's confidence is destroyed, considering he ends up losing more often than not. But Roma counters,
builds my confidence because I'm a young wrestler, I'm coming up. It's not so bad.
"Yeah, Mr. McMahon, I used to only get pinned for like 3.241 seconds, but now I get pinned for 3.11 seconds. Total improvement." McMahon then once more turns his attention to Mario Mancini, asking if the teenager truly knows what he's getting into, considering he's been up against and absolutely crushed by monsters such as King Kong Bundy. The moron thinks just because he's young, he'll be able to bounce back no matter what kind of injury he may sustain. Hey Slugger, want some free advice? Some wrestlers will see that as a challenge.
Nice guys finish last. You got to get out there and do what you can, whatever it takes to win. You got to get out there and do it.
The next trio of unsung heroes are Jim Powers, Jose Luis Rivera, and Rusty Humpty Dumpty Brooks. I harp on Brooks a lot, but the man is tough, and he did gain his toughness from being raised around Denton, Texas, which he goes on to describe as,
"Well, anywhere in Texas, they grow them big and they play good ball. They wrestle well. Big tough guys down that way. I don't like to be considered in the same class as these two gentlemen here who obviously have a long way to go."
The truth of the matter is that neither Jim Powers nor Jose Luis Rivera can hold a candle to him. If someone the likes of Bobby the Brain Heenan, Mr. Fuji, or even the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, got their hands on someone like Rusty Brooks, they could mold him into the ultimate weapon.
So glad that he gave me those.
Speak up a little, man.
How do you expect to be a star when you can't even speak at an audible level? This is why people like Jose Luis Rivera need management, but considering he ends up losing more often than not, it's no wonder a manager of quality hasn't picked up the Puerto Rican's contract.
Pedro Morales, one of them.
You find that humorous, Rusty?
Well, you got a has-been and never was.
Money is a strong motivator, and despite coming out more often than not on the losing end, every single one of our unsung heroes states that it is money that keeps them coming back for more. While the topic switches to other motivations,
Gotta have a little bit more of a drive from inside.
Well, your drive don't seem to be doing you too good, partner. I think you ought to just sit on the end down there and be quiet.
As for Jim Powers, he definitely has a future.
I've seen you wrestle. I don't think you got much room to talk.
the last trio of losers are Pete Doherty, Charlie Fulton, and the unpredictable Johnny Rodz, who's the only one worth any ounce of respect in there. Fulton is a failure no matter what he does, And then Doherty is an outright lunatic, demanding to be referred to as
I'm the Duke of Dorchester, by the way, too! Whenever you introduce me as the Duke of Dorchester!
One thing all 9 Unsung Heroes have in common is, despite the fact that they do lose a lot, all of the top wrestlers that they seem to face off against, namely
Superfly Snooker!
always wind up cheating to win.
I'm going back to the Middle East, where people speak to me with respect. What are you laughing at, Jack?
Just the
Huh?
only the accent.
To wrap up TNT, some goof named Crusher Comic does some of the worst stand-up I've ever heard in my life, and I'm not gonna waste your time with it. But if you are a sucker for punishment, I'm sure you can find the cringe-inducing bit somewhere online. With that, another episode of TNT comes to an end. And I'm not sure about you, but I have a newfound respect for Rusty Brooks. Not only does he have promise in the ring, but he knows exactly what he's talking about outside of the squared circle as well. If only a manager of prominence takes notice, who knows? Maybe Rusty Brooks will be facing off against WWF champion Hulk Hogan before we know it. I've seen weirder things happen in pro wrestling, and I'm sure you have too. Thanks so much for tuning in to another special episode of Tyler Vance Rants. Don't forget to hit the bell, like the video, and subscribe so you never miss when a new episode is released. You can also follow me on social media, where it is 1985 and pro wrestling all over again. That's all for now. So long. Especially against such highly experienced and skilled competitors.